So, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being so patient with us. I would like to introduce to you now our keynote speaker, Brenda Dixon-Gottschild. Brenda is
Well, it's the video is going to show it all. We should just do the video so we can keep moving.
Well, I'll say this much about you. We met in Germany, and it was love at first sight, a very deep friendship, and now I'm so happy to have you here. We're going to hear and see what an introduction to your life and your work. And then afterwards, we'll get into talking about reclaiming Black joy.
Okay. Thank you. Love you. I hope Rosemary can play that second video. I can't do it from this end.
Yeah, I'm sure she's doing the best she can. We're having, we're having fights with technical things.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't think this is going to work the way the format is. So you're going to have to allow her to introduce you and go without the videos. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Okay, that's this always happens, that technique decides to do what it does, what it wants to do, but humanity always will triumph. Take that, Elon Musk. So, Brenda, I would not be capable of giving a short introduction to the richness of your life and your experience. I will just say this, that there is probably no one who knows more about the development of Black dance, especially Black dance in Philadelphia and the people around Philly. And there was like a really, really important and vital Black dance scene in Philadelphia, and there is to this very day. You have educated and mentored countless dancers and choreographers who have reached international fame. But why don't you tell us, first of all, a little bit about you? How did you start? What moves you?
Black joy moves me. And movement moves me. And a sense of a kinesthetic connection to what we would call spirit or the cosmos. So movement connects me. What else moves me is how I had hoped to begin this, which was music and these incredible songs that actually come out of pop culture as much as any other kind of music. And again, I wanted to show this video because it really talks about my past. Like, I'm 80 now. And what it shows in 6.5 minutes is, and maybe we can show it at the end if somehow it would work, but it shows the kind of in a collage fashion, it shows the progression of me as a 25-year-old first dancer, modern dancer in New York with always white companies to working in experimental theater with the Open Theater, again, being the one Black person in this group, touring with these groups, living in Europe, in Finland when I was 25, in Stockholm. Then it shows me as a scholar and the books that I've written, and pictures of me actually in like movement poses, if you will. And it takes you through my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s in 6 minutes. And then I would say, and here I am, and I'm in my 80s. And so what moves me actually is incredibly this thread of dance and my my heritage, my and you know, a core of a ground of understanding that on which I sit, and out of which comes my understanding. And I realize as I've gotten older, and of course I've continued to study all this time, I've become aware of my ancestral roots in Blackness, which is not something that you grow up learning about when you're in school, you know, years ago. And even now it's being fought because of this fight around critical race theory in school. So that was going to be the opening. But as you're right, humanity prevails. And I just wanted to then again talk about this whole idea, because we were talking about resistance in the arts. And, you know, somebody said it's an act of resistance for Black people, and not just Black Americans. It's an act of resistance for Black people to claim Black joy, or to reclaim Black joy. As wonderful, incredible feminist and Black thinker Hortense Spiller said, American racism kind of enforces forgetfulness. And just as we don't want to forget all that we've been through and the ancestral shoulders that we stand on, we also don't ever want to forget our joy. Because if we hadn't had that, if we hadn't had Black joy and Black laughter, we would not have gotten to where we are now. So I want to speak to that. I want to also mention there's so many wonderful people in this generation. And I think, Elizabeth, of your daughters, and particularly of Sophia, who has this real sense of the pulse of this time. All the people who are coming out of dance at this time, who are dealing with this Black joy. There's this wonderful woman named Rashida Bumbry, and she's been reconnecting with the African-American ring shout, which was one of the things, and talking about a shout, it's like a dance that really took African-Americans in its arms as a way to preserve an ancestral way of worshiping, even when Christianity had been forced upon us. So she has been doing a lot with the ring shout. And I heard her speaking the other day, and she talked about the moral obligation to attend to Black healing. Yes, yes, yes. So what I'm going to do now, before Elizabeth and I speak, I'm going to speak through the words of Black women artists. So these are my words, and they are their words that reflect me. So first, I wanted you to hear Amel Laroo's song, but here are the words to it. She's an incredible poet, and she writes all of her own work. So the words to Orange Glow. I want to rise above my fears before they burn my solar plexus. Don't want to fight the new, just meditate on the state of what I'm changing into. Touch the light. orange glow to wash your soul, illuminate you. Out of sight, burn your house of pain and watch the flames ignite your breakthrough. I love that line. To take that ride. I want to take that ride to the planet where the brave me resides. And I will face the fire because ain't no breakthrough gonna come without no sacrifice. I'm like vibrating as the liquid enters my fingertips, pulses in my veins, from my toes to my lips, fuels my brain, frees my pain, breaks my mental chains. Awakened I am as I blink my third eye. One life have I. So it's time to live. My girl. My girl. And I also wanted to, in some way, talk about, and I'm so sorry, I guess we can't show this either. Oh, but I might have the actual book here that I can lift up. Yes, I do. So old-fashioned, old school way. It's in the screen.
Yes.
Black Imagination, curated by Natasha Marin, who's a Trinidadian who grew up actually in Canada and now lives in the Great Northwest, like Washington State. And it was a wonderful, and she's like the age of your daughters. And she did this wonderful exhibit where you would go, and I love the cover, that we would go into this totally darkened room and hear and see quotes by Black people who had seen the exhibit, and it was all about entering our imagination. And I love just some excerpts about this book. She's a 39, so this is a review of it. And of course, this is a kind of show that's not going to travel places, unfortunately. So it was on the West Coast. I found the book, not on Amazon, though maybe it's there, but I found the book from an African-American woman. Again, Philadelphia is such a seat, as Elizabeth probably remembers, of Black culture. It's very different than New York. I mean, all these places across the USA are these very strong seats of Black culture, and Philadelphia happens to be one of them. The music, jazz, the Black middle class, the dancing, all of this. But in this day and age, there is an online service called the Sable Collective. And that's how I found this book, from the Sable Collective. And just a few things about a work like this. To understand Black joy, this is a part of the review of Black imagination. And this, of course, is my topic, Black joy. To understand Black joy, you first have to understand that for many African Americans, myself included, happiness is not just a sensation, it's an achievement. It's a hard-won form of overcoming that can be so fleeting that your mind swings back into worry, struggle, anger, sadness, grief, disillusionment, and anticipation. What the writer James Baldwin described as, quote, ancestral, daily, historical truth of Black life in this country, close quote, before your body has a chance to absorb that lightness of being. So many of the current generation, and I'm so glad I'm working with young people in this generation, because I feel like they are helping us reclaim that lightness of being. And it doesn't mean to in any way reject the pain of the past, but to see how much that experience transformed and transcended the actual pain and gave us this jewel that we still have, this Black joy. I just want to read one little comment from this book, and then I will move on. So in one section of this Black Imagination book, which is divided into sections like imagine, rituals, healing, origins. So in this section, page 45, a woman who happened to be an artist in Seattle writes a little bit about imagine and imagination. Imagine the energy in the magic of me was known. Imagine each nap on my head was given credit for its place in the spiral of existence, for helping us swirl together so beautifully like this. Imagine my skin was akin to the black blanket that keeps the stars warm. Love that line. Imagine my skin was akin to the black blanket that keeps the stars warm. Imagine the twinkle in our baby's eyes was called the stardust of us. Imagine knowing I am the love I seek. Imagine knowing I am the love I seek. Imagine if the world knew I was perfect. Imagine my bills paid on time. I think it might feel like my shoulders easing. My molars would no longer play pestle and mortar to my dreams, grinding them. Let me get better. Imagine a world where I am safe, valued, and loved. Sensitivity would return to the deepest reaches of us. In my world, all the babies would be loved. And when the new little ones were born into the world and into my family, we would revel in the darkness of their skin and praise them for reminding us of who we are. We would love the dark in my world. We would love the naps in my world. We would love in my world. I will keep imagining until my story is clear, until my vision comes together. So again, how and where I take inspiration, and I must say poetry has always done it. I did not become introduced, except for people like Langston Hughes. I didn't know a lot of Black poets growing up. At one point, Elizabeth, you will laugh, I was in college and I was very much attracted to the poems of Hugo von Hofmannsthal. And yes, and I had used one of those in a poetry contest at City College when I was a senior, because you could get some money from it, and I needed some money. But they liked better my rendition of Langston Hughes. And I think, though, that that had something to do with their own stereotypes about who I was and what I should be reading. And now, of course, you know, I'm loving, there's so much poetry that's coming out at this moment from the Black world. As always, it's a place that we save ourselves. So I have, Elizabeth, just 2 more poems to read, and then we can talk, okay? So a poem from, a good 1993. And then a poem from 2000. Poem from 1993 by the brilliant Lucille Clifton. And probably you people know her, and you probably know this poem. It's the most famous. Won't you celebrate with me? Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come, celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Thank you, Lucille. And this last one from the wonderful Tracy K. Smith, who had been our poet laureate, and again, so much the history of American poets laureate that began in the early 20th century have gone to people of color, largely African-American. I think maybe James Weldon Johnson or somebody like that was the first. But we've had also Maya Angelou, Rita Dove, Elizabeth Alexander, and they're bringing Indigenous people in. Joy Harjo was the poet laureate for like 3 years. Incredible, incredible. She's Muskogee Cree, and just beautiful poems. And then before her was Tracy K. Smith. So this poem was written really November 23rd, 2020, kind of a response to the kind of unbelievable awakening and reckoning that we all had, not only with the pandemic, but again, something about George Floyd. There is something about George Floyd. So it's called We Feel Now, a Largeness Coming On. Being called all manner of things from the dictionary of shame. Not English, not words, not heard, but worn, born, carried, never spent. We feel now a largeness coming on, something passing into us. We know not in what source it was begun, but wrapped. We watch it rise through our fallen, our slain, our millions dragged, chained, like daylight setting leaves alight, green to gold to blinding white. Like a spirit caught, flame in flesh. I watched a woman try to shake it once from her shoulders and her hips, a wild, annihilating fright. Other women formed a wall around her, holding back what clamored to rise. God, devil, ancestor. What Black bodies carry through your schools, your cities. Do you see how mighty you have made us, all these generations running every day, steeling ourselves against it every day, coaxing it back into coils, all the while feeding it, and all the while loving it. So much in that. And the combination of suffering and love, the combination of pretty ugly, the combination of bittersweet, the combination of what makes us human and what makes our joy. So that's my starting place, Elizabeth. Wherever you want to take it, whatever you want to ask me.
There are a lot of things I'd like to ask you, but I suppose I'm going to have to narrow things down. So I'll ask you the most essential questions. I mean, I could ask you things like, where did you start dancing and what? And this, I think this is when I have you present, not essential.
Right.
Essential, you speak of reclaiming Black joy. Where did it go that it needs to be reclaimed?
American racism that enforces forgetfulness. Again, what Hortense Spillers tells us, we are kind of enforced to forget what it is that we know. That our joy, of course, has been very difficult for the dominant colonialist culture to fathom, though constantly it has been appropriated, or let us, say what it is, it's been ripped off. That's why all of the music that we play, all of what you know of as American culture, and now, of course, in Europe as well, is basically Black culture. As the great Robert Farris Thompson said, you don't know how American you are if you don't know how Black you are. So, I mean, that's where it's gone. It's been, as I said in my first book, invisibilized. Where has it gone? It's been invisibilized, but we have kind of kept a sanctuary for it in our very being. In our very being, I would say,
I have the feeling that Black dance is a great repository of Black joy.
Yes.
And a lot of Black dance originated in resistance to, in opposition to, and in triumph over incredible pain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that dance started there, but Black dance refined that transmutation of pain and grief into joy through the body to a point where we can talk about specifically Black dance, and it's inextricable from explicitly Black joy.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
What do you see with this younger generation of dancers and choreographers?
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, they're doing things that I did not do and you did not do.
Right.
So how does this Black joy express itself in this generation, in this new generation?
I believe, again, like speaking of people like Rachida Brumbury, and again, not only in dance, but in all that we do as people of the African diaspora, let us put it that way. And as we are with other people of color, we are the global majority. We're not a minority. But I think what we have done is we are doing also again, reclaiming, we're doing a reclamation and if you will, also a reparation, because these are things that we were not supposed to be remembering, that we were not supposed to go back to, like reconstructing for this millennial moment ring shouts, for all of the ways in which choreographers like Rennie Harris with his who really reinvented hip hop for the concert stage, or many of the things that companies are doing, like Serge Coulibaly in Ivory Coast, reinventing where we are based on where we were and where we hope to be. So people also, are talking not only about Black joy and reparations, but people are also talking about Afrofuturism. So the idea that all of this is actually held in the well of our experience. And everybody will, every time I give a lecture now, I pour a libation to the ancestors. So, I mean, everybody is now reclaiming our ancestral joy, if you will. So I think that's different, that there are now, we are also making our own performance venues more and more. It's not just that we're trying to do it on the concert stage. There are people, for those people who don't know, like New York or the USA, so many things are usually considered, Manhattan is always considered the New York. But there are these boroughs, the Bronx and Brooklyn, that are heavily Black and Latinx. And there are wonderful centers now in the Bronx and in Brooklyn where people are getting grants, creating performance venues. Arthur Aviles, who danced for years with Bill T. Jones, has created in Bronx, it's called BAAD. BAD is the acronym for Bronx African American Dance, or something like that, but the acronym is so great. And there are places, and that's not the only one in the Bronx, there are others, but so what people are doing is also saying, oh, our periphery is central. Our periphery is central. We don't have to perform at the Met. Yes, we can. And yes, we will be invited there, but that's not the only place we're going to perform. And so the whole idea, of course, of site-specific work, and of course, everybody's doing that. You go any place in Berlin and you'll see some site-specific work, here or there, what have you. Yeah, and performing in spaces like the Black Burial Ground in downtown Manhattan, which was discovered. They were about to construct some new building, and in the dig, they had, I think, and this was the first one about 20 years ago, they had a forensic anthropologist from Howard University, I can't remember his name, wonderful guy. As they were, digging the ground, put up something in Lower Manhattan, they found a Black burial ground. And the fact that that then became a sacred place and the building was not allowed to go up, people have come to spots like that, for example, for performances, for rituals, all kinds of things being discovered. So it becomes about Black dance, but what it is more about is a Black aesthetic and a Black, as your daughter Sophia was talking about, or maybe it was Alice, I think, but talking about community and collective, and how these things begin to come together to make a shape of something, and a zeitgeist. So there's a time, and that's why I think all that happened in the pandemic and this, George Floyd, and this was all over the world, not just in the USA, that became a milestone and timeline for people to say, we've got to do something. We've got to do this. We can't do that. We can't change the systems, but there's a lot that we can and a lot that we can do. So I feel that in every sense, I hate to say it, but his murder was not in vain. And that's hard to say because every life is precious, But I feel like, and it's not only that marking point. Then there are things like I'm still doing all this work with ballet, and there are a whole bunch of people who are expanding the parameters of ballet. And I just did a panel in New York on ballet. I'm also working with the discovery and the rediscovery of the Black roots of flamenco, and also again, so I have on March 7th, I'll be doing a presentation that everybody can tune into. Of course, though, for you people, it will start at midnight, but it will be, it'll be recorded and streamed, but it's called Who's Flamenco? Roots, Rhizomes, and Branches. And again, to also acknowledge and appreciate the often unacknowledged Roma center in flamenco as well, because the Roma people are still, Spain was, and Portugal, they were the first of the colonialists. And there's that mindset still. And Romas, I'm sure are happy to live in their communities, but also that's kind of allocated for them as well.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Fascinating culture. Very deep.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion or in your feeling, why did this one particular murder, this one particular killing of a Black man, why did that become such a spark?
I'm not sure. I mean, of course, it was building, as you probably well remember. The Black Lives Matter movement really was Alicia Garza's response and Patrice Culler's response to that first. It's not the first killing. We've been killed all the time, and not only in America. It's happening in Germany, as we well know. God, in Norway of all places, And what's interesting is there are diasporan populations all over the quote unquote white world. But the Black Lives Matter movement was really, again, a defining moment. God, if you think about this whole new millennium, I hate to say it, it's like, what a mess. Started out with 9/11, Obama, and I will get to this. Obama gets elected in 2008. We think, oh, racism's over. That's when it really started, the worst kind of backlash in America for those 8 years. Trump comes along. Then here's the pandemic. Okay. And then and when Trayvon Martin was murdered, and that's really when Black Lives Matter began. And that was Alicia Garza's reaction when Zimmerman was acquitted for killing Trayvon Martin. So that was a real essential beginning. I think that was 2012. And I remember at that point, Obama had said something like, that could have been my son. And do you know he was attacked for that?
Yes.
That man could not open his sweet mouth without being attacked, So that was the beginning. Then, of course, it was Michael Brown, Ferguson, and then so many others. I can't, Sandra Blaine, And all of them having been murdered. John Crawford, I could just keep, I could keep rolling on. But what of course changed everything, Elizabeth, was ta-da, that you could take pictures of it, that you could video, and the whole world saw. We had heard about Trayvon Martin. We did see Michael Brown's body lying on the street, but we didn't see what actually happened. To actually witness that 9-minute torture of George Floyd just blew something up in the world, I really feel. And that's when the whole world started demonstrating, in spite of, but also something having to do with the fact of the pandemic, that so many things, in the Chinua Achebe sense, things fall apart. Things fell apart in 2020, So yeah.
I really do find that interesting that there was a spark that went all around the world.
Right.
And
it affected dance, it affected everything.
Yeah, I think there was a blossoming of creativity that came as a reaction to that.
Right.
So once again, Black joy and Black resilience is almost, it seems to be an infinite well.
Yes, and they're also totally cognate. They're married. They're married. Yeah.
Something completely different.
Okay.
How was your experience when you came to Europe, specifically when you came to this extremely white Scandinavia?
Mm-hmm. Again, my radical Black consciousness had a while to evolve. Unlike you growing up in Philly, I grew up in Manhattan, in Harlem, and I went to schools where they were all integrated. I was put in advanced placement classes, and all my friends were like Jewish and Black, mainly Jewish. The companies that I danced with were white. I made my way through early dancing. I danced with Danya Foyer and Paul Sanisato. I then danced with the Mary Anthony Dance Company. So I grew up very much in a white world, and I was under the illusion that I had not been touched by racism. So that was very interesting. Therefore, both my husbands and this wonderful man who walked in and out of the room, my second husband, both my husbands are white. This one is German. I love him dearly. It was something that you did. My first trip to Europe, and that was a lot in Scandinavia. And then I ended up teaching dance in Finland for 6 months at the one modern dance studio there. It was like I graduated college when I was 20. I was a language major, French and Spanish. Everybody wanted to go to Paris, of course, and you all did that. I went to my best friend and I went to Europe right after we graduated to stay for 4 months. At that point in 1963, we had an Icelandic flight. You paid $400 round trip, okay? And you flew for like 17 hours, and they were feeding you basically like TV dinners. It was like, but this was our adventure. And so it was fine with me. And of course, I was very affected by not Richard Wright, but James Baldwin and the whole and Miles Davis. And that whole sense of Europe was, it was like a gas. as we would say. It was groovy. It was so I loved being in Scandinavia. I loved particularly being in France, and got to perform in at the Alliance Française, Boulevard Raspail. So like at the student center and stuff like that. And I loved being in Stockholm, and that's where I met Peter Weiss and I know we're going to run out of time soon, but I saw there are no questions. So anyway, Peter Weiss and his daughter Rebecca, and she and I became fast friends. And she lives now in Florida, and we're still in touch, old ladies that we are. Oh, I had a wonderful time in Scandinavia, and that was the first trip. And then there were many other trips. And then, and I had never desired to go to Germany because all my friends, including Rebecca Weiss, et cetera, they're all Jewish. And all of my New York friends were Jewish. And when I performed with the Open Theater, that was when I was 25, and we had this tour of Italy. And then in the next year, we actually performed in Germany, in Munich and Berlin. Right after the performances, all the Jewish people in the company, and almost all the people in the company were Jewish, except for me and two guys. They all left. Nobody wanted to stay in Germany, Germany was fine for me. So, I was always the American and the lovely dancer and the whatever. So I just kind of breezed through. When I had asked you that question on the panel you just did with your daughters about what did people in Germany think about you, being a Black mother. I mean, for me, Europe was freedom, in New York, when my daughter was little, and you can see, like you with your daughters, they certainly look like us, but their complexion and whatever might be different because they have, another genetic set coming in. But people would think that I was her nanny. And that was what I was getting at with you. One of the things that I always say, because a lot of people, and still my Jewish friends, can't understand why I love Berlin so much. And my answer is, no one assumes I'm a maid and no one assumes I'm a nanny. Okay. And it's so, now I can talk about European colonialist, but the colonialism and patriarchy, but the experience for me has really been in the USA. And I realize it's totally different for, like, if I were African in Germany, they get hell. I know it,
Yeah. Yes, I had something similar. For me, I felt an enormous sense of freedom being in Europe because I was a ballet dancer.
Yes, right.
I wasn't even a modern dancer. I was a ballet dancer. And when I was in Europe, there were a lot of people who just understood what I was doing.
Yes.
And I thought, at the time,
Of course, the difference for us in Europe and in America is, we're the exceptions, right? And in America, we're the rule. There's just so many of us, it's like frightening, But in Europe, we are, and again, it's the same thing with ballet dancers now, that Desmond Richardson can dance, with the whatever ballet company, but it's difficult for him to get work with the ballet company here. When Bill Forsyth had the Frankfurt Ballet, he had these wonderful people, Francesca Harper and Desmond Richardson, dancing with him. They don't come back and get into city ballet, Thank God there's a dance theater of Harlem, and they are always fantastic.
Yep. Yeah. Last question.
Mhm.
What would you like most to give to the next generations?
Love. I know love is not enough, but love is the best place to begin. And I would indeed say continue to love. And this is what I feel in all that I have read today, in the people who I have mentioned, that, love is our stream. Love rules. For some of us.
For all of us, ultimately.
Yes, right, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, dear,
It's time, yes.
it's been absolutely delightful sharing with you.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that we went to places in this conversation that are not purely technical and
Yes.
not, I mean, whoever wants to can Google you and find out about your extraordinary scholarship.
Mm.
But the essence of what you're doing, what you've done, and what you will do, and what you want to leave, this can only be really understood when we're in dialogue.
Right. And you know what else I'm putting up? I forgot to mention I'm this year the Mellon Artist in Residence for the NYU Hemispheric Institute of American Politics and Performance. And it was to introduce a lot of our videos are there. Helmut's and mine working together, Helmut individually, and mine lectures, etc. I'm putting it in this chat. Go to the Hemispheric Institute to see their video collection. Whoops, a lot of our videos. Okay. And it's you just Google NYU Hemispheric Institute, and yeah, and that's also where the March 7th talk on who's flamenco will happen. And we have a wonderful African-American flamenco dancer, Alicia Bryan, who goes by the name Pájaro Negro, and a wonderful Roma dancer who's here at that time. Her name is Raquel La Rumpopia, Raquel La Rumpopia Heredia. So it's a beautiful session. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. And this is such a wonderful forum. Truly, truly. Thank you.
Then